Thank you. So amazing. Do we have some YWAMers home? Are you all up there? Stand up. If you just got back from YWAM, stand up. We had 23 of you. Some over here. So awesome. You guys, we're so glad that you're back. We can't wait to hear more stories. We got to hear a couple last week, and we're excited for you to just bring the fire to Grove. Let's go. Tonight, if this is your first time here, or if you are new to Grove at all, I want to fill you in on what you're a part of right now. I was standing in here during worship, and I was just sensing the Lord say, remind them why they've come here tonight. Remind them that if they're checking out this church, and how we church shop and you check around the different places, see what's a good fit for you. If that's where you're at right now, I want to tell you a little bit about what we're about. If you look around this room, the people that you see, we call you the hungry ones. We say that these are the ones that are saying, I'm not interested in sitting on the sidelines anymore. I'm not interested in just going to church because that's what you're supposed to do on Sundays. I'm not interested in reading my Bible because I have to, and I don't really even do it very often. You are among people who are pursuing God in their everyday life. This is a community of people that are hungry for more, that are not willing to settle, and are asking to be among a company of other people that are saying, I want the same thing, and we're going to push each other hard to go after it. So that is what this is about. So we do things a little bit different sometimes. During worship, it's a little bit longer, right? So we might linger on a song for a longer amount of time because we know that the people that are in this room are connecting with God and they know how to tap into Him, and we don't have to spoon feed you. That's not how it works here. We are creating a space for hungry believers. I'm getting a little bit fiery about this because I just feel like you need to know that we are creating a space for ones who want to be mature in God. We are not messing around on Sundays. You don't come to church on Sundays because you're supposed to go to church on Sundays. Do you understand? You're with me, right? So if you're new, welcome. We do things a little different. When we give extravagantly and with joy, and we get out of our seats and we don't just pass a plate. It's different because we want to be active in our faith. I'm sick of being bored. I'm sick of sitting on the sideline. We're not doing it anymore. So that's what this entire church was built for. People like you. Okay? So if we're not doing that when we gather on Sundays, we're messing around, and we're not here to mess around, okay? So tonight, we're going to get really practical, and we're going to you guys are all going to have like little worksheets. We don't do that all the time, but tonight we're going to. It's going to be great. But I want to talk a little bit. I'm done with my spiel. Let's talk about the message, okay? We are in a sermon series right now called Ambassador. This is our 4th week of being in it. Pastor Josh has laid an amazing foundation for what it looks like to be ambassadors. If you have not heard the last 3 messages, I encourage you to go online and listen to those, because those are the foundation point, our launch pad to what we're going into for the rest of the summer. So we're going to continue this series for the rest of the summer, and we're going to get really practical. But if you haven't heard the first couple messages, you're going to be a little bit more lost as we meet together. So go back, listen to those messages, but I'll give you a little bit of a recap tonight on what this is about. So I just talked a little bit about how our vision, our mission is to empower everyday believers, right? So most believers are not in vocational ministry. What's the percentage? 97% of people are not in of believers are not in vocational ministry. That's most of you, right? So we're looking at this going, and this has been what's been in our hearts since the moment we planted Grove, was how do we empower the people of God who think that they need to sit on the sidelines because it's not their job to actually go and advance the kingdom and to live this exciting life in God? What does it look like to empower them? And we believe that it comes down to what we would call the 7 spheres of society. This is one of the things. So we're going to put this on the screen. These are the 7 spheres. These are things that we interact with in culture, whether it be in our job, things that we do in our everyday life. So it's religion, family, medical, government, education and science, business, media, arts, and entertainment. So let's say that you're a student. How many of you are currently a student? It's the majority of you, I think, in this service, right? So if you're a student, you would be in the education sphere, because that's where you're spending most of your time right now, right? But maybe you are studying business. And so you would also be like moving towards that business sphere. You likely are also in the family sphere, because if you have a family, you're probably in the family sphere. So for me, I'm in the religion sphere. Vocationally, I'm a full-time pastor, so I'm in the religion sphere. I'm in the family sphere because I have 3 kids. I have neighbors that I'm interacting with and showing the love of Jesus to. I have my kids' friends that we're trying to be an influence with. And then I'm in the arts a little bit. So those are kind of my 3 spheres that I engage with. So we're looking at, what are the spheres? Like my everyday life, what am I a part of? And we're trying to kind of boil that down and look at the reality that so many of us think that what counts or what matters is where we're like serving or volunteering or kind of this thing on the side. But then our day job is something that we kind of just like get through, and it's like a means to an end. Like, I have to do this to pay the bills, but really what I'm passionate about is human trafficking, and I volunteer and do that on Wednesday nights. Do you get what I'm saying? So I am a student because I have to be, so I just like get through my day, but really I'm passionate about the nations, and I can't wait to go to YWAM this fall. Like those types of things. And I believe that it is such a shame that we would look at the areas that we spend the majority of our hours of our day, of our weeks, of our years as secondary, not important, or something that we don't use our spiritual eyes to see through during our everyday life. I think that there's this element where we can sometimes engage in, let's just call it school, since a lot of you are students. In class, I think it's easy to shut off your spiritual mindset because you're in school right now. But then you leave school and you go to your prayer meeting, or you go to your worship night, or whatever it is, and oh, there you are, there's Holy Spirit again. But when you're in math class, you're not really thinking about the Lord, right? You're not necessarily thinking about like who's in this room that I can be love to. But as soon as we leave, oh, well, now I'm on an outreach, so now I'm thinking about people. Do you get what I'm saying? I believe that there's an invitation for us to see our areas that we're engaging with as opportunities and as platforms. I think that when I say the word platform, most of us think of a microphone, a stage, and a crowd of people. Am I right? I think especially in the church, we think of having a microphone in your hand, whether it's because you're leading worship or you're speaking or whatever. In the religion sphere, I believe that that is one of the greatest tools of the enemy to tell you that that's what a true platform is, negating the fact that actually every person in this room has not only one platform, but probably multiple platforms that you are currently standing on. And I think that tonight, we have an opportunity to open our eyes to what we're already standing on. I think that the enemy does everything he can to blind us from our own realities a lot of the time. I think that a lot of us are waiting for our big break. You know what I'm saying? I have a vision for my life, and don't get me wrong, having vision for your life is good. But I have this vision for my life, and this is what I want to do, and you envision it, and you romanticize about it, and someday I'll do that. But how many of you know that your big break doesn't just come? That's not how life works. There's a lot of steps to get you to that point of what you're actually dreaming about and where you want to go in your life. And the right now, the everyday moments, the baby steps towards that so matter. They so matter, so much so that I would say they make or break where you're actually headed. I think that there's some of us that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for that big vision to happen. And we are missing everything that's right in front of us. And I think when we open our eyes, we are shocked by how many opportunities are right in front of us all of the time. Let's look at 2 Corinthians 5. Do you guys have that? Could we put that on the screen? This is our passage for the Ambassador series. I encourage you to memorize it because it's so good. God reconciled the world to himself through Jesus. He didn't count people's sins against them, but he entrusted to each of us the message of reconciliation, the lifestyle of reconciliation. Therefore, we are his ambassadors. God has made his appeal through us. He has decided that it is through each of you that he will make his appeal to the world around you. When Jesus was on the earth, he wasn't here very long, right? He gets to the end of his life, and he's talking to his disciples, and he's telling them about how the Holy Spirit's coming, right? And he says, it's going to be better for you when I leave, because then you're actually going to literally have me on the inside with you at all times. It's going to be amazing. And then he says, go and make disciples, right? He says, go and do the things that I showed you. Go and do what I did. And I think for a lot of us, we get hung up. How can I live like Jesus lived? Like, I'll try. Like, I'll do this part of that, and I'm doing my best, but I'll never really be like Jesus. When in reality, Jesus modeled what was possible for a human when God lives on the inside. The purpose, Jesus came as a man to show you what you could do and greater things. Let's not forget. So, he says, I'm going, and his master plan is you. I just sit on it for a second. Sit on what that actually means. God is not willing that any would perish, right? He loves every human on the planet from before into the future, every human. He loves every single one of us. He's not willing that any would perish, but the only way that they will know him is us. He must actually believe that it's possible that we live like him. He must actually be convinced that it's possible. Can that blow your mind a little bit? It's not just like, okay, I think they can, I think if it's just the right, perfect, they're gonna be able to maybe figure this out. If we're talking about life or death for his kids, do you think that he is giving that over to us if he thinks it just might work, I hope? He believes that it's possible for his kids to reveal what he's like. We have to know him. We have to know him. He has no plan B but for you to know him. Because when you know him, you become like him. Right? I want us to really grab hold of that it's possible. I don't want you to take this in as condemnation. Don't take guilt, shame, condemnation. I'm not doing enough. And that actually paralyzes you. So if that's what's stirring in your heart, just get rid of it right now. This is to be life and hope and to activate the faith that's actually in your heart going, God knows that it's possible. So just engage, this is lighthearted. Even though we have responsibility, he has handed over responsibility to you and me. But his yoke is easy and his burden is light, right? It's good. It's not heavy. It's not burdensome. It actually is life-giving when we walk in who we were always created to be. It's life-giving. It's light. So tonight I want us to look at our platforms and what that actually means. I want us to look at what would happen so in light of everything that I just said about what is possible, okay, well then how? Like, let's get really practical. How do I take steps towards that? We like to really boil things down as much as we can and make it really accessible. We always talk about like demystifying the things of God, making them accessible to everyday people so we can all do it, because that's the heart of Jesus. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to have you all grab these pieces of paper. Now, the 4:30 service, they should be under some of your pews. I'm going to help you find some of these. You guys have them. This is going to be a little crazier than the 4:30 service. Just start passing them around to everyone. You guys have a couple right underneath there if one of you want to grab those. Ben, if you want to come down the aisle so people can see you. Raise your hand if you need one. Everybody needs one. The whole balcony needs them. We've got enough. We can do it, guys. None of you have them, right? No? Do any of you have them? Nothing. Hold them up if you have extras. Okay, does anyone on the floor not have them? A couple in the back. God's going to have to multiply the pieces of paper. This is when it gets real, guys.
Hold them up. If you have extras, hold up the extras down one side of the aisles, and we can grab them. Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, how many, do we have enough for the balcony, Ben? We're going to do this as a group activity, I think. You have enough on this side? Oh, just this side. And you guys have some? Okay, who still needs them? Okay, this is great. This is so real. Oh, we have some over here. Right up here, guys. Any extras, Haley? We have a few more over here. Up in the balcony. Thank you for being patient. That was an experiment. Okay. Everybody look at these, because I know that when we have things in our hands, we want to see what they are. And I would love for everyone to pay attention after. So let's look at them. Just take it all in. And then we'll talk about it. I'll walk you guys through what we're going to do. Okay. So the platforms, the whole point of this is that we're going to discover the areas of influence that we already have. The platforms that we are already currently standing on that maybe we haven't taken time to notice or realize, oh my gosh, there's so much opportunity there. And we believe that these areas or these platforms become significant when we look at them and say, you are worth my intention. I'm going to be intentional about you. So these areas in front of us, or these platforms that we're standing on, aren't significant unless we tell them that they're significant. They don't become significant in your life until you take hold of them and say, this is going to be significant now. This relationship that I already have is now going to go somewhere because I am giving laser vision to it and I am inviting Holy Spirit into some conversation about it. So we have the ability. You're saying, God, use me. God, I want to make a difference. I want to see the lost saved, whatever it looks like. When he's already rolled out the red carpet for us to do that in our everyday life. And so we're going to take a minute and we're going to just look at those things, okay? So under this brainstorm section, it's a brainstorm. That's why it's called that. So we're going to look at all the areas in our life. Before we start, this is what I want you to do. Look up at these 7 spheres here. And I want you to write up in the right-hand corner which spheres you engage with regularly. So think about your vocation. Where do you spend the majority of your time? Think about the different spheres that you interact with. Probably 1 to 3 of them will be. You guys have them? Say yeah if you do. Cool. Okay, we're going to brainstorm these types of relationships and influences. Okay, so organizationally, so if you're working or something like that, do I oversee anyone? Who do I meet with regularly? Do I oversee any gatherings or meetings or anything like that? Relationally, who confides in me? Who comes to me for wisdom or insight? Who do I interact with regularly? So, for example, I may have a lot of neighbors, and I may wave to some neighbors when I drive through my neighborhood, but there's only a couple of neighbors that I probably talk to on like a weekly basis where it's regular interaction. So don't just put everyone in your life, but who are you consistently connecting with to some degree that may not know the Lord, or maybe they do? We're going to write down all the names we can think of in this moment, or the names of a department or a ministry, if that's more what it is for you. Make sense? Yes? All right, let's go. All right. So that brainstorm is just to get you thinking. It may not be an exhaustive list, but it's just to start getting your wheels turning for what we're looking for, okay? The next thing I want you to do is choose one of the things that you just wrote down. So where it says platform, you're going to pick one. So for me, let's say that I was thinking about the family sphere that I'm in, and let's say I write down my kids, that I'm gonna be thinking about my kids. So zero in on one of the things that you just were brainstorming around, whether it's a group of people or one person, and write that down on the line next to platform. Ready, go. Maybe it's one that already has been sticking out to you, one you think about a lot, or maybe it's a surprising one for you that you're like, oh, I wouldn't have said that before. Just choose one. Values. Everyone turn your page. Look on the other side of it. What we have written here is the 6 cultures that we carry at Grove. Our culture is a massively important thing to us at Grove. Culture is values expressed in your life, and they become culture. Okay, so if you've been through DNA, you may have these memorized. I hope so. If you haven't, or you're new with us, I hope that you have experienced some of these cultures in your time with us. But I'm going to go through, it's actually an acronym for church, that we are the church. Celebration, honor, unoffendable heart, radical servanthood, crew or community culture, a hunger culture. These are some of the things that drive this community forward and that we're really intentional about. And so maybe you're looking at values and going, because what we're going to have you name is what is one value that you want to be intentional about with that person or that group of people that you just named. So maybe you're thinking of a value that you carry that isn't on this list, and by all means, use that one. But maybe you're looking at these and you're going, you know what? I want to focus on celebration. Like when I'm around people, I want them to feel so championed by me. I want them to feel like their small accomplishment was this massive accomplishment. Like they're getting a standing ovation from me every time we're connecting. I maybe want it to be a culture of honor. Maybe I want to focus on honor and really just step into a new mindset in how I'm seeing people. Maybe you want to stop regarding people according to the flesh, but you want to start being intentional about seeing them according to who God created them to be. And maybe you want to begin going low and honoring others and considering them more significant than yourself. Maybe you want to focus on an unoffendable heart. Oh my gosh, there's so many ways to just get offended and bitter every single day. There is so much thrown at us. And maybe you want to go, you know what? I'm here to love. And I don't hurt from people, but I hurt for them when I see that they're not being who God created them to be. Maybe you want to flip your mindset and be unoffendable in your sphere. Maybe you want to step into radical servanthood and you want to just go low and you want to be a foot washer and look for opportunities to go the extra mile when you're with your sphere. Maybe you want to engage people with like a community or a crew culture, bringing family everywhere you go. Maybe it's one of those things where you're going, you know, I go to work or I go to class and I'm just there and I'm task-oriented and I'm not seeing people very much. Maybe you want to slow down and start seeing people more. God created us to go together, not to go alone. And maybe you've been going alone, and maybe he wants to invite you to link arms with some other people. Or maybe you want to establish more of a hunger culture. Hunger is like teachability. We always say about the Lord, it's like we can never exhaust the depths of who he is. We always have more to learn. We're always growing up into him. But when you're talking about with people, a hunger culture is like a good listener and an amazing question asker. There's always more to learn about a person, and maybe you want to just slow down and start engaging them more in that way. So pick one, or one that's not on here. These are just the ones that Grove has. Pick one of these values that turns into culture and write that out on the values line. It's right under platform on the front side. So just choose one that you want to focus on. Say got it when you do. Cool. How are we doing? Good. This is practical, but it's good. It's going to be great. Okay, so vision. What's your vision? What's your goal? What does that look like for you? So for me, let's say that I chose that I'm going to focus on my kids, that I want to focus on radical servanthood. I want my kids to actually see me in my everyday life operating in radical levels of servanthood. So let's say that was mine. So then my vision or my goal might be, I want my kids to see me model what radical servanthood looks like. Really simple, right? Just lay out what is it that you want to see happen with this person or this group of people as it relates to the value that you just chose. Just write like a one-sentence, really simple statement. I'll give you a little more time for that one. Okay, under implement, we're going to boil these down and make really small, attainable goals that you could start tomorrow morning when you wake up if you wanted to. So for example, something that I might do is I may say, my first goal is that I want to pray before I interact with my kids and ask the Lord, hey, show me opportunities that I could model radical servanthood for them. Very simple. 2, maybe I'll say, I want to put Post-it notes in like a couple spots that just say radical servant, and it will remind me like what I'm going after. Or maybe I'm going to, my goal for this week is that I'm going to clean my kids' room for them without them knowing it and expect nothing in return. Do you get what I'm saying? So just like simple things that you think you could do. Maybe you're going, I want to write a note of encouragement once a week to someone that I work with. Or maybe you're saying, I want to initiate lunch with someone after class or on our lunch break. Or maybe I want to, when I walk into work or into my class, I want to stop and like make eye contact with like a couple of different people before I actually sit down and get to work. I want to be more relational and present with the people that I'm around. So just take a second, write 3 different things that you think that you could implement realistically starting tomorrow. Okay, you can take your sheets of paper and set them to the side. We love doing practical things like that because it takes lofty vision and it pulls it down and anchors it and makes it possible for us to actually do. I remember it was a long time ago that the Lord gave a word about being a people who have their head up in the clouds, but our feet on the ground. And he was talking about us having like heavenly perspective and like living above and being seated with Christ in heavenly places and seeing from his perspective, yet our feet are fully grounded and engaged with the world around us, living a practical life. And so I just want to encourage you that things like this, they may seem tedious, but it's meant to empower you and like catalyze you to engage with things like this. So when we look at our engaging with the world around us, I believe that the invitation that God is giving us tonight is faithfulness in the small things. Faithfulness to engage in the little ways with things that are right in front of us. I think that we can hear vision of like, is God going to find faith on the earth when he returns? Or all creation is groaning for the sons and daughters of God to wake up and realize who they are. And we have these things that we say that move our hearts, and we have so much zeal that stirs inside of us, yet without practical ways to walk it out, all it is zeal inside. And we want to give you opportunity to release that in practical ways in your everyday life and actually see transformation, not just wishing and hoping and can't wait for that day, and I hope that happens for me. No, like today. It's possible when we break it down, even though it seems tedious, when you break it down and make it accessible, those small yeses and steps of obedience towards God like this, it changes the world if we all engage like that. Let's stand. We're going to go into worship.